Welcome back to the Level Up podcast, where you learn how to go from agent to entrepreneur. And we're going to break your brain with this episode because Greg broke my brain. just in the pre-show, we were talking about, kind of working out the topics that we want to talk about. And you said something that completely broke my brain. Basically, it was that you don't have a number, a production number in mind for yourself, which I want to get into that in a second. But first of all, how are you? What's up?
I'm doing good, man. And, you said I broke your brain. That's fun. That means we're having fun. And
I was going to say, you've done that multiple times. You did that to me when you told me that you don't consider yourself a disciplined person, which people should go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah.
That broke my brain. But we're talking about how success has nothing to do with the results. And I basically asked you this question. What is your vision of success, not necessarily for your top echelon people, the top handful of people that are just absolutely crushing it, because we're going to do an episode about them. For the people that are not yet at that position where they have that foundation of excellence and performance every single day, day in and day out. There's some guys that some folks on your team that have that, right? Great.
Yeah.
For the folks that aren't there yet, I was curious, well, what is your vision of success for them? And I was expecting the answer to be like, oh, I'd like them to produce somewhere between 2 and 4. Like I thought it was going to be economic, maybe performance related, but I figured there'd be a number and a metric attached to it. And you're telling me that not only is there not a metric for that for your, most of your agents in your brokerage, you don't even have that for yourself. And that broke my brain. So what the hell, man? What the hell?
Yeah. So, I guess for so many years I have, all I've ever thought of and focused on and have been taught is to follow a process. And when you follow the people that follow a process and improve their skills, end up doing extraordinarily well. So I've always felt when it comes to a number for my agents, what's my vision of success? When somebody asks me that, which very few people, you may be the only person that's ever asked me that, my vision of success does not have a number. It has more to do with what the process looks like. So I know that you can achieve extraordinary results when you do some simple things. But we know that those simple things are often very difficult for people. Like, for instance, if you show up to the office at 7:30 and do a little bit of role playing, if you wake up at 5 and go to the gym before you showed up for the office, like those are things are really simple. But human beings make that really difficult. I can't do that. It's too tired. I didn't get to bed early enough. Like there's all these difficult conversations around those simple activities. And so, but that's really a process. It's that waking up in the morning is what I call the pregame. And then at 8 o'clock, your first call happens to be the game. And then at 4 o'clock, let's call that the post game. The pregame is what you do before 8 o'clock. The game is between 8 and 11, and post game is at 4 o'clock when you actually should be doing something with your family. My vision of success is when somebody can follow that process, because I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Two things that resonating with me right now. Number one, they're going to do a tremendous amount of business. And number two, they're going to experience the joy and happiness that they really that they expected to have by being in the real estate industry. Now, my vision of success are those two things. The financials that they dream to have and the freedoms and the enjoyment that they dream to have. If that's 2 closings or 200 closings, neither one of them are going to be better than the next for me. See, if I do it any other way, then you're going to start choosing the ones with higher numbers.
Right.
And then what does that do for the people with lower numbers? It makes them less than. The number will make someone less than and somebody more than. And that's going to show up in the way you communicate, the way you set up your systems, the resources, what you offer agents. That's going to show up, and it's going to cause problems. But if my vision is the number is insignificant, it's the process. Well, everyone follows the process. Everyone's equal. So at that point, that's what I see as success. I see success. Yeah. Tears come to my eyes when I see an agent following a process to the T. I'm not worried about their numbers because I know what happens. going to get the numbers. If we
Yeah.
fixate on the numbers, we're always going to be, we'll always be lacking. If we fixate on the process, well, it'll be abundance at all times.
Okay. There's so much to unpack there. Let me briefly comment on this from the perspective of someone making the jump from agent to entrepreneur.
Yes.
So when I hear that, there's a lot that I hear. But one of the things that stuck out to me is if I was in the position of going from, let's say, rainmaker to team leader and team leader into broker and beyond, the temptation is to do exactly what I thought you probably had, which is to put a metric around your vision of success for your agents, right? Like I want to do a certain number of units a year. I have X number of agents. Therefore, every agent should be doing X number of deals per month. And if they're not, then like you said, you make the ones that aren't meeting that standard feel less than. Great. Like that's very tempting to go down that road.
Yeah. I need to comment on that though. Okay. Because with that being said, I will be looking at those numbers towards the end of the year, probably in the next 2 weeks. I'll be looking at the numbers of every agent. But here's what I'm going to see. Here's what I'm going to look at. I'm going to see that somebody is doing 20 deals. And I'm going to, by their name and that little 20 deal number, I'm going to be saying, what could they have done if we would have helped them do blank? So it's more of like, I'm looking for what should the process have been? Like, what could the process now be? So it's not that like getting from 20 to 40 is significant. It's like whatever the process is, now we know it got them to 20. I'm just focused on the process. So instead of like, how do we get that person from 20 to 30? It's like, how do we help this person improve the process? Now we know what will happen. We have historical data that shows when we follow this process, this is the type of results that we're going to get. So, I mean, let's not be totally, deny the fact that numbers sometimes come into the equation. It's just the number never determines my vision of their success.
Yeah.
There is some sort of measurement that needs to occur, just like there's a measurement on a yardstick. You have to have something to measure.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, so you are looking, but it doesn't. You're careful in the sense that it does not trickle down to making them feel less than for not hitting a certain. You're looking at potential. You're looking at like kind of the positive upside of great. We have this process in place. It's produced X result. Could we get 2X? Could we get 5X, 10X? Great. But what does that break down to in terms of just making improvements to your process, right? Okay. All right, let's break it down to the agent level. So let's say they're a solo agent that doesn't have the benefit of that kind of leadership. I mean, obviously they can get your leadership. They just go to realestatesalesolutions.com and they can get into your training program and they can actually get you, first of all. So they'll say that. But let's say they don't do that because they're insane. But let's say they stay out and they're lone wolf. Like, I mean, that's what draws a lot of agents into the business. I was that way. Like my number one value is freedom, which is why it would draw me to real estate to begin with. So let's say you stay a lone wolf, but you want to set those types of goals for yourself. How do you know, for example, when you are trusting the process and you don't have the benefit of your years of data in your market to know what the process produces? How do you trust the process and go, hey, I'm doing the right things. The results haven't showed up yet, but I'm not going to judge myself harshly as long as I'm following the process. That's a hard thing for agents to do.
Yeah. And so I guess the first thing that I would say, that person would have to make sure that the expectations are lined up correctly. Like, okay. You're following up the process. Let's assume you know what that process is and you're following that process. Well, you've got to follow that process for about 12 months before you actually can really determine whether it worked or it didn't work. Most agents will not follow that process that long. They will, at some point, they will declare it's a success or failure prior to 12 months. So I always think of it, in the industry, we talk about 90-day processes. And I say a new agent comes into my office. And in the beginning, they follow the process to the T. They're like, oh my God, Greg said we needed to do this. I see Greg's got all these top agents, so I'm going to do it. And like I'm coaching them, and about 30 days go by and I'm talking to them, like they're saying, man, I'm following everything you say to the T. This is great. I know success is going to be coming my way. And then around day 60, they're like saying, yeah, I'm following the process. And I mean, do you think there's anything else I could be doing? And day 75, they're like, screw this. I don't think this process is for me. Mm-hmm. I just really don't. This is just not working. I need to change something. Mm-hmm. And then day 90, if they don't quit, day 90, it's like it's like a damn miracle. Day 90, oh my God, I just got somebody to call me back from 2 months ago, and they said they're ready to list with me. This is great. That's how it works. Yeah. Day 1, they're gung-ho through day 30. Day 30 through day 60, they're losing hope. Day 75, they're thinking I'm crazy. Greg's lost his rocker. Day 90, they think I'm like the gift to them. So the point is most people don't get to day 90 because they quit at day 75.
Right.
So the first answer to the question is how do they know that the process is going to work? How do they have confidence? Is you got to make sure that you understand that it's not supposed to work month 1.
Right.
It's not designed to work month 1 or month 2. You're just getting reps on month 1 and month 2. This is still preseason. It's still pre-game. You're still like in spring season of developing the muscle. You're increasing your real estate IQ. It's not supposed to work. Most people think it was supposed to work when it wasn't supposed to work. And then they decided to go a different direction. So me as a leader keeps them in the game longer than if they're that lone wolf.
Right.
It's easier to quit when you're a lone wolf.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great analogy, though. I like the spring training. That's a great way to look at that. Like the game starts when when results start to come in. Everything up till that, especially when you're just starting out, is just like the equivalent of preseason before the real season even starts. That's a great analogy.
That's all you're doing. Yeah.
Huh, that's good. All right. So any tips for let's talk to leaders for a moment. So we talked about lone wolves and what they can do better, which is remind yourself of that, have good expectations going in, and find a leader, right? What if you are the leader and you're trying to deliver that encouragement and you run into some agent that's in the pit of despair? How do you motivate that one agent one-on-one?
Well, I mean, I guess there's so many different scenarios that we could, that I could be thinking of. So I'm trying to generalize.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me phrase the question better.
Okay.
What do you bring it back to? Do you bring it back to their big why, their goals? Do you dig into that? Do you find that it's more helpful to get them to focus on the process and take pride in the process? Is it different for everybody? Do you have to kind of tailor your approach?
There is a lot of differences. If people are unique, and so we are required that leaders should be versatile. Mm-hmm. But if I was going to create a formula on it, if I was going to try to say, okay, this is the formula to follow, or this is the recipe to follow when talking to somebody like this in this scenario, then I take it to process. I said, let's revisit the process. Okay. And if this is what the process is supposed to look like on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are you showing up for the process? Obviously going to be less than 10. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when it comes to that, once we acknowledge that the process, it's not the process is there. The process works. We know how to work the process, that it's just we are not showing up for the process. Then that's when we start really having the really good conversations, which is, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of, really? Are you afraid that there's a possibility that if you actually show up for the process that you may be successful? And then all of a sudden, all the other people in your life that are not showing up for their very own process, now all of a sudden you're going to kind of like separate from them, and you might find yourself lonely because you no longer are compatible with that group of friends. Is there a chance that you are afraid that maybe your loved one is going to like leave you because now all of a sudden they see you as a threat because you're successful? Is there a chance that your dad used to talk about how bad salespeople were, and now if you actually become successful at being a salesperson, you start to wonder if you're that bad person that your dad always talked about? Now, tell me, what is it that you're afraid of? because it's not the process. It's not a knowing how, wanting to know how, and knowing how that's all BS. That's all BS. There's none of us are confused on how to do this stuff. If you are, I can unconfuse you real quick. Go to Google and ask Google and they'll tell you how. Okay, so we can unconfuse really fast. So how is not the issue? How is the distraction? Us claiming we don't know how is the distraction that we put, that's a way to distract ourselves from actually taking action.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Really what it is.
So in the real estate space, you're dealing with known quantities. The process is known. The process has been figured out for decades. Yeah, call a FSBO.
It's like, what coach do you don't need a coach to tell you to call a FSBO. Yeah. And I've been saying this to some people too. It's like, you know what? You don't need a coach to tell you how to do something. You need a coach that can get your ass to do something.
Right.
And that's how I get them to do something. I always say, hey, I'm not going to be the most liked, but I will argue that I'll be the most effective.
Right.
And that's my job. My job is not to tell you new things because there's not really many new things. My job is like, what am I going to do, say? How am I going to inspire? How am I going to get you to take more action?
Mm-hmm.
That's what most of us need in our coaching. Is somebody that's going to be detached and it's going to, like, their whole mission is to get you to move, not impress you or entertain you with dialogues about the next new script for a for sale by owner.
No. Yeah, it's interesting. I think for anyone that leads a team or broker in the audience, like they should latch on to what you just said, because I'm betting that the sentence that you just expressed is your everyday obsession. What can I say? What can I do? How can I inspire the agents to take action? I bet that is the question that is on your subconscious when your head lays the pillow at night and when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah. And I'll even say this. When I go home and I know that I did it, I go home with my heart singing.
Oh, interesting. That's almost like your set internal temperature for your own success.
God, man, that's like watching Rocky, go to Russia, work hard and win. And I'm crying I'm sitting here crying when Danielson and Karate Kid wins the tournament. Like, cause I'm thinking about like all this stuff Mr. Miyagi told Danielson that Danielson didn't want to do, but Mr. Miyagi demanded that he do it. And he did it and he did it and did it, was confused, but he was very unconfused when he got into the tournament and whipped the person's butt. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yes, that's it. It's like, we as good leaders we cannot rely on the feedback from our agents for salvation. I can't, if I'm going to coach you.
I mean, in terms of how well liked you are, like that kind of positive feedback?
Feedback meaning like if I tell you to do something or I suggest you do something and you don't do it. I suggest you go and talk to 10 FSBOs today and I talk to you tomorrow and you don't do it. I cannot let that emotionally impact me. I have to let that emotionally motivate me. I look at when you come back and say, well, Greg, I know you told me to talk to 5 of them and I only talked to 2 of them. I am not going to be looking at you. I'm going to be looking in the mirror and be like, the heck do I got to do?
Yeah.
What do I got to say to get him to move forward and do these activities? I don't get mad at you. I look internally at me and I'm like, what adjustments do I need to make? And then all of a sudden I change my game, my communication, how I show up for you. You all have now changed the way you show up for you. And then I see that and I'm like, wow, I may have just changed somebody's life. Because if I can do that for you, so that's why I say the value of the coaching is not to tell you how to do something, it's to get you to do something. Because when I can get you over the hurdle of fear and get you to get out of your box and get in there and get into action and start doing something, then it might only be about a forced elbow owner between mine and your relationship. But all of a sudden, guess what? When you go home, you're going to take that same teaching, you're going to do it somewhere in a personal level. You're going to actually probably give that coaching to one of your children. You're going to change people. And then Greg Harrelson's heart's going to be singing, because that's what's important to me. And I can promise you, when we read those books, and, Maxwell says, and I don't know there's a direct quote, but, John Maxwell will talk, and there's other leaders that have said this, is that, if you help enough people get what they want, then you always get what you want. If you'll focus on helping others generate wealth for themselves, and you don't have to worry about wealth for yourself. I truly believe that if you but you have to do what I just shared. It's not about, I can be wealthy by forcing you to be wealthy. No, I will be wealthy when I teach you habits and processes that lead to wealth, and then equip you with that knowledge. And then you'll start spreading that knowledge to other people. Like, that's truly a contribution, right? And now that's where I feel like, okay, you don't need to worry about the number.
Yeah.
You don't really need to worry about the number. I know that's deep, and some people are going to, some people are going to be like, you know what? Yeah.
Let me bring it back around.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you watch and you pay attention to sports, and you see it, like I pay attention to football, you pay a lot of attention to tennis. Like tennis coaches are unbelievable because it's such a deep personal relationship. But the best coaches, to me, the thing that separates that from the rest is that exact thing you said, which is when you can't get somebody else to perform, are they the problem, or do you look internally and go, how could I coach better? And I'm just telling you from my experience, like I run in the world of coaches and consultants. I've heard very few people say that, and they're well-meaning and they want to help people, but that's not their first response. Most of the time when somebody doesn't take your advice, your first response is, man, they'd be so much better if they just took my advice. And a lot of coaches walk away at that point and go, well, they just weren't, quote unquote, serious. So right. To bring it back around,
that's where my job starts.
Yes, that's where that's what makes you a great coach.
Here we go. Don't take my coaching and see what happens.
Right.
Meaning, let me coach you, and don't listen to me, and see what happens. See what conversations we have. Now, contrary to what you believe, because you see me on these videos, you probably think I got a baseball bat behind me. I got a tennis racket. I'll hit him with a tennis racket.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a bat, but it's a tennis racket. But you probably thinking, Greg's pretty hard. He's probably going to hit him in the head with a baseball bat. No. I will have a conversation with them, and I will dig deep into the core and figure out what they're really afraid of. Yeah. And then we'll start having the conversation. Now, is that really something to be afraid about? And that's how we get movement.
Yeah.
That's how we get movement. I'm glad we had the conversation, though. I really am. I think this is a great perspective for us to be sharing, to our community. And
I think it's what sets you apart. It's what sets apart, like even the coaching program, like other people could throw up a page and say they deliver all the same things. It's not the same.
No.
I don't know anyone else that's like this.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I guess that could be a bad thing.
Well, and you do have to be serious. I mean, there is some truth to that. Like, in order for someone to get into your world and go, I want to be in Greg Harrelson's world, you do have to be serious in the sense that once you know the process, you do have to be willing to commit and follow through. But yeah, there's nobody else. There's nobody else that thinks like that. There's very few. I don't want to disparage every other coach, because there's a lot of amazing people out there. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you think about it at a deeper level, and I know you well enough to know that is the question that rattles around in your head and in your subconscious all the time. Because I see it ooze out of every pore of your being every time we do one of these things. Yeah. I get to hear the conversation, like where these episodes come from. For those in the audience that don't know, is they come from me and Greg talking behind the scenes about what's going on in his head based on the interactions he's having with his agents in real time. What's going on with them right now that we need to adjust and correct, because Greg is one of the few really true leaders. And not somebody that manages, not somebody that recruits, but somebody that's a true leader. Because that's what it is. Leadership is about getting people to take action towards a certain result. And you always look internally to see if you can do that better.
Yeah. You mentioned sports. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen, if the coach of the professional team isn't winning, the owner does not go in and fire all the players. They fire the coach.
Yep.
I think that's how it is. Of course, not everyone has to follow that, but that is part of kind of like where I get this from. I understand that we cannot look at agents and say they didn't do something. We must look at agents and say, who do we have to show up as in order to get them to do the things that they need to do?
Right.
You take that on, and if you got a team, if you got a company, I promise you, you will grow your organization exponentially when you take. But that has to come from you have to believe it. You have to bleed that type of concept. That's not like, oh, I heard you say it, I'm gonna fake it. No, it has to be you.
Yeah, that is true. And you won't be there immediately.
No.
So there's nothing wrong with taking baby steps in that direction. We don't want to convey that. Like if you don't feel you're leading at that level, great. Like now there's another level that you can lead at. Let's work on getting up to that level of leadership. But yeah, it's a really incredible thing to tap into that level of leadership. To me, that's the difference between when you think about recruiting, you think about what base are you recruiting from? It's like, well, we help people produce. Okay, great. Was that what you want your agents telling other people that are thinking of getting into the business or thinking about joining you? Is, oh man, my boss kicks my butt. Like I can't get out of line for a single day, and he's riding me. But it's good because I make a lot of money. It's like, okay, great. Or would you rather have somebody say, Greg changed my life? Yeah. Like I find myself repeating Greg's words to my kids at night. Follow the process. Like the things that he's taught me, like those are things you notice. Like if you pay attention to who talks about, like look at the way players talk about Lou Holtz.
Yeah.
Decades later, oh, the entire trajectory of my life changed because of the 4 years that I spent with Lou Holtz or Woods or the guy, those classic coaches like that. That's the kind of stuff that you could have people saying about you if you coach and you lead. Even within your real estate business at a small level, you can have people leaving and telling other agents and other people that are thinking about getting into the business, this isn't just a place you come to show up and produce a link, make a lot of money. You'll do all those things, but it'll also change your entire life. Like what wouldn't you rather have people saying that about you in the community?
Yeah, and I know we'll probably wrap this up in a second, but I think you and I talked about writing eulogies. And I think I told you this before. I wrote a eulogy years and years and years ago. Matthew Ferry was my coach at that time, and he had me do that as an assignment. And one of the things in my eulogy is I was describing is a younger girl gets up to the microphone just to say something about me, and she got up and she said, "Thank you. I know you don't know me. We never, ever got a chance to meet, but I heard a lot about you. And I just wanted to say thank you." And that girl that got up, in my mind, who that girl was a grandchild of one of my agents. Because I believe I will know my agents, of course, and they can say thank you. And I appreciate them saying thank you. I will know most of the kids of my agents, and they could possibly say thank you. Also, like if their dad or mom passed down a lot of lessons to them, and it helped, they saw transformation within their parents because of our relationship, then they could say thank you. But I'm not looking for impacting only the generation that can physically tell me thank you. My job is not complete until I've impacted a generation beyond the one that I will meet. The girl that said, "Thank you, I know you don't know me," that was the grandchild of one of my agents. So this though we didn't set out to get here on this conversation, this is a core being of who I am for the company. And I held myself to a level of accountability to the extent of that person that generation I won't meet. And so every day I got to show up. I got to show up every day in order to accomplish what I just shared with you at my eulogy. I've got to show up every day for my agents and staff every day. Period. They can't be a number.
Yeah.
They can't. My vision of success for them cannot be a number, because I can get that number, but not actually influence those generations. So I just believe I'm playing a different game than most people are playing.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. That is a completely different game. All right. Let's finish out with this. We went to Leadership Church today. That was fantastic, Greg.
Hallelujah.
Okay. Exactly. All right. So first of all, for the listening audience, go share the show. First of all, that's probably the best thing. You can leave a rating and review, and that's super helpful as well. That kind of algorithmically, puts the show in front of more people. But the best way to put the show in front of more people is to share it. Like, send it to an agent that can get benefit out of this. Somebody that's, especially if they're hitting that point, and agents like this where they're kind of hitting that pit of despair point and they need some encouragement on what the path looks like out of it. Share this episode with them.
Share it to your broker owner or managers in the company. Maybe that'll be something that'll improve everything within your operations. Yeah.
Very, very true. Yeah. And then Greg, tell us just a little bit briefly about the coaching.
Yeah. So if you went to Agent Success Academy, you just Google Agent Success Academy or go to agentsuccessacademy.net. This is the first time in all my years that I have actually agreed to do any type of coaching program. And what I've done is I've created a weekly group coaching program. One-on-one it's just not possible. I guess anything's possible. But I can't trade, that many hours. I don't have that many hours to do that. So I've created a one-on-one coaching program. A group coaching program you can get involved with. And basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the things that I know, the core components of building and developing very successful real estate agents that do hundreds, 200s, 300s of transactions, do hundreds and hundreds of listings on a yearly basis without like a team. They're actually solo agents doing these things. I'm just breaking down everything that they're doing, and I'm coming to you every week and giving you that information. Crazy enough, in addition, Matt, if you're a part of the Agent Success Academy, we also have a telephone number that you're allowed to text questions to, and we answer all the questions that are text to us. Now, I will say it's really cool because that texting those questions is giving us good feedback for information that we need to be sharing with you. So it's a great way for us to get feedback, but you can judge for yourself. I just don't think you can have better access to somebody that is knowledgeable as us as that. So I just welcome you. We only had 2 coaching calls, and somebody said that they took 4 listings.
That does not surprise me at all.
From the ideas from the 2 coaching calls.
Yeah.
And I will say, just to be true and authentic here, is I don't necessarily believe that I told that guy to do something that somebody else hadn't told him to do. I believe that person got into action because of the way I told him.
Right.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So good. Please join me. Please join me.
Yeah, I hope people do. All right, man. This has been fantastic. We'll leave it there. I think we did not get a chance to do the other episode we have in mind, so we'll have to do that again. But we covered a lot of ground, talking about the things that do separate those agents that you mentioned, the ones that are taking a couple hundred listings a month. They can get all that information. But we did cover really in this episode what makes them unique, which is process over results. And just that we dug into that mentality. It's the same mentality that drives the upper echelon of people in your brokerage.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, it's been a good one. Thank you so much.